I'd like to welcome all the guests, to include a Boy Scout in Boy Scout uniform. Good for you, son. You're here for part of a merit badge or something, are you?
Yeah.
And your name?
Mark Lennon.
Good, Mark. Congratulations and welcome to being here. Also, we have Mayor Roddy, who's going to be here tonight. He's an Eagle Scout. Sure. He will be working with us on item number 2. So, first item is then, I do have one amendment to the agenda. Bear with me until I find it. It is it's in regard to the Hudson River Estuary Watershed Resilience and Management. We've been requested by Orange County Water Authority. They're putting in for a grant, and they would like us a letter of support in doing so. So I'm going to put that under new business. Does anybody else have anything relative to amendments to the agenda? Okay, with that then, Phil, why don't we, privileges 4. If anybody has anything that they would like to talk about in our agenda, and we have a copy up here if somebody would like to get a copy, it's on the table, we would certainly open to discussion on those items. Okay, with that then, Phil, let's start with reports.
Right. I have a very brief report. Our police chief is currently on vacation, but he seems to be getting a good handle on all the paperwork that is required and all the procedures, training, and I'm very, very encouraged. You know, we've been over a year without a police chief, and we seem to have a lot more organization right now. So we'll see what happens when he gets back.
Good. Hi, George.
Okay, I have my monthly report for the Joint Rec Commission, which is the village and the town composed of. We're getting now into a very active part of the recreation part. Zumba fitness classes are really taking off. This summer, I believe there's 8 different classes. They're held on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Goshen Senior Center. Secondly, the Parks Department is doing a lot of preparation for the summer programs that are going to be taking place. The biggest one is the Recreational Day Camp. It'll start on June 24th and go through August 9th, Monday through Friday. That's 7 weeks. The second thing is there's a Drama Kids Camp, which is going to be held from July 15th through the 19th. Then we go to summer sports programs. There's a Goshen High School tennis courts are going to be giving tennis lessons. Youth co-ed track, which is on Wednesday nights from July 10th through July 31st. Then we have a U.S. Sports Institute, which is going to be holding 2 different camps, July 22nd and 26th, which is going to be located at the Craigville Park. We have the Beginners Golf on July 22nd, and Kids Art is a relatively new program. It's new this year, and there's going to be 2 programs there, July 8th through July 12th, and August 5th through the 9th. A couple of other things. June 29th at 10 o'clock is the memorial service for the Myron Abansky Memorial Park, also known as Craigville Park. Phil and I are working on that program. Everyone is invited. Let's see here. Also, we have girls volleyball camp, which is going to be held July 8th through the 12th and July 15th through the 19th. A girls basketball camp from July 22nd through the 26th, and July 29th through August 2nd. And believe it or not, the Radio City trip, which is right before Christmas. As it says here, are you thinking about Christmas in June or May? That's scheduled for December 12th at 5 p.m. The tickets, including the transportation, which are orchestra tickets this year, there's an upgrade, is $75 a person. The parks, the spring sports leagues are in full swing, and the parks are very busy. Park staff is busy maintaining the parks, mowing, weed whacking, and completing seasonal projects. That's my report.
Thank you very much, George. Ken?
Yeah, like, very quickly, as we know, the letters went out to the residents in both Hamiltonian Park and water districts that for those who were not compliant with allowing us into their houses for inspection for possible illegal hookups. Got a great response, a lot of people calling in, scheduling the appointments. And likewise, you have other people just refuse to cooperate, and I guess the next step will be the next step. Also, the generator for the Hamiltonian Park facility is on schedule. It's a little behind, but it does plan on having that all connected and in place and running by the end of June. Otherwise, everything was clean up at the water district, etc. But otherwise, that's it.
Thank you very much, Ken. Lou?
1 second, please. Okay, I do have a few things. I do want to go over some things that we discussed on Monday night. First of all, I just want to make mention that 2 weeks ago we hired two seasonal part-time workers, full-time workers for the season for 6 months. And I talked to Robert, they're working out super. So he's very pleased with the two gentlemen that we hired. Monday night we had Robert here, our highway superintendent. We talked about our road program. I just want to go over some things that we're doing this year. This year we're taking on a big undertake with, we're going to be doing Old Chester Road. And Old Chester Road is a 2-mile stretch from the village near the cemetery, and it goes all the way out to the driving range. All right. So we will be doing that road. We'll be reclaiming it, blacktopping it. We'll also be doing the two wings off of it, which is the road right next to the driving range. No, let me get to Duck Farm.
Oh.
All right, and also Duck Farm Road. All right. So all in all, that is going to be a big stretch. But the main work that's got to be done is that there are several big culverts along that road. One is near, we all know, near Jerry Corey's house. There's a few more down the road from her, and one before you get into the village that run a lot of water. So we'll be undertaking that project. The other thing too is that we'll also be chip sealing some roads that we did last year, which was Cheechonk and 6.5 Railroad Station. And also the travel volume that is taking place on Phillipsburg Road for a shortcut to the hospital from the village. I want to say it this way because I know that when I'm in the village, I go that way. If I'm at home, I go the highway. So that stretch from Cheechonk Road that goes to the Walkill Town line is going to get a lot of attention this year, and we're going to be putting some money in there because that is in real rough shape. And again, Broderick talked about also maybe doing some T&L work on Phillipsburg to get that ready for the up and coming years. Another little note I want to pass on to everybody is that we have done, I feel we have done a great job in increasing the road program. Back last year, 2012, we had $340,000 budgeted for the road program. That's all. All right. This year we're up to a little over $500,000, $501,417, which is an increase of $161,000, or if you did percentage-wise, 47.4%, and still staying under the cap. So, and we need to do this because we have over 70 miles of roads, and it's hard to do a project and turn over roads every 30 years. We need to have it. When I first came on this board, I think the road, if you remember Doug, I think back then, I think it was $90,000 that we had that was allocated. And now to get up to here, this is, hopefully we'll go in the right direction. So basically it. The other thing I was going to talk about was Dollar Bus is running good. We did the meeting yesterday for the senior center was postponed, and I thank George for bringing up the Zumba class because Ellen wanted me to bring that up and you brought it up already. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I just say something before I forget? Oh, sorry, I did forget. Last Friday, I was invited up to Orange County up in Montgomery for the Meals on Wheels program that's run by Orange County. And I'll tell you, it's quite impressive what they do for the people in Orange County. Probably doesn't get too much credit, but I'll tell you, that is a program that I had the pleasure of going out with a group of people to deliver. It's a moving experience, and how to congratulate Orange County and the taxpayers, of course. Great program, and those people really need help. I told Doug, when I came back, what was greatest impact was, I realized how much I really have. Not how much people don't have, how much I have, so kudos to Orange County and the taxpayers for helping those people out, and it was very, very good. And Doug was there, by the way, but I think it's different faster. Thank you.
All right, you're quite welcome.
Can I just mention one thing
Yeah, please.
about Lou's report? There's one other notable thing, and that is all
Use the mic,
money-
George.
That's all money that's cash. We're not loaning, getting loans for any of this work. It's all money that we have in cash. How's it go again? We either pay
as we go,
or
we don't go.
Chief.
Okay, thank you very much, fellas. I have three things as well to report. One is I did go on Meals on Wheels with one of the volunteers from Goshen. We went house to house, and it's really an enlightening experience. It's fun. But I must say that the elderly people who receive the meals really look forward to having the meal delivered and interacting with the person doing it, so it was a good thing. Also, I was invited to the Chamber Breakfast, Goshen Chamber Breakfast, where they honored the students in Odyssey of the Mind, and then there was another group, to the life of me, I can't remember. What is it?
Science Olympiad.
Science Olympiad. Thank you very much, Kyle. And I had to say it when I was there, as a Goshen High School graduate, and also as a scientist, and that's what I did for when I went to the university and for my work. I said that whoever named Odyssey of the Mind and coined that phrase, they really hit on a wonderful thing. And the same thing in regard to science. When I went to school, we had nothing like that. And so I applaud the school administrators and the teachers and the mentors and all the people doing that. And I want to tell you a little story why I feel this is so important. When I was in private enterprise, I was operating a fair science business for a company. And we were making millions of dollars in sales per quarter. And it all of a sudden fell off dramatically. And it was I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. It was really, really tough. I got calls from the corner office every day telling me how unsatisfactory I was in running the business. And so myself and two other fellows who ran the business, one of the guys read a book by a fellow named John G. such and such, I don't recall his name, but he was the Minister of Commerce for the Shah of Iran. And when the Shah of Iran had to leave Iran, when the Ayatollah came and took over the government, well, this man had to leave as well. And he ended up at the Wharton School of Business. And he had this consulting company. So we hired him. And we turned our business around. He was one of the brightest, most well-meaning people I've ever been with. And we turned our business around. But one of the things he said that went right hand in hand with what the Goshen Central School is doing is, he said, he who is going to be successful must outthink the competition, whatever it is. Whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a businessman of any kind, and how well we think is beyond the academics. So you can read the science book and know all there is to know about it, or you can get a master's degree in business administration, MBA, and know all there is to know about it. But if you don't think beyond that, you may not be as successful. And what I saw with these children with Odyssey of the Mind and the science group, they were thinking outside the box. We saw these projects that they were working on and whatnot, and it was really astounding. So, kudos to them all. I think we'll read about them in the newspaper in 10 or 15 years when they go out and make their mark. And they'll be from Goshen, New York. Likewise, I went and was involved last weekend before last in 2 Eagle Scout Awards. And kudos to the scout leaders, not only Boy Scouts, but Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, anyone who, they have other things to do other than doing that, but they do it anyway. And these 2 young men who got their Eagle Scouts, it was obvious. You just look at their pedigrees of what they've been doing, they're special. So I applaud you tonight for giving up your time, coming here to learn about what we're doing as well. So it all ties together. So that's my report. With that, the first item is under old business, review and approve the 2013 year-end budget transfer requested by the town budget office. So,
That would be 2012 year-end.
I'm sorry, 2012, pardon me, year-end.
I'd like it to be 13, but it's not.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to do it again.
I wouldn't,
next year.
no.
So, Bill, do you want to kind of go through, just highlight what the purpose of this is? And,
Yes.
but you know what, Billy? You put 2013 on your piece of paper.
Right.
You got it.
Right.
I thought I had you
And
under
we're
the
just
bus.
following the leader.
Thought I had you under the bus. 2012 fiscal year and budget transfers, and this is an occurrence every year by state protocols. When you run a budget, when you run an operation in a municipality, you have all your actual operational expenses throughout the year. Your budget is a guesstimate when you start out, and at the end of the year, you're either over in some and under in others. So it's customary to make sure that everything matches out, and where you've fallen short, you pull from another source and put it in. And this is generally done probably closer to the end of the year. But I've customarily done it basically between late March and early May, because through the audit process, it's not even possible to do budget transfers before you have your adjusting entries from our outside auditors. It's just foolish to think that you can play basketball on a football field. So this is what that is. If you look down through, I don't know if you had a chance to scan through these, most are normal and customary. You'll see a couple of large items. Outward tax certs continue to be something that it's a hard number to budget for. There were a couple of purchases that were necessary. Some we didn't know about at budget time, but soon after we realized we were going to handle them, we used the contingency fund for those. What I tried to do by just some of the big ticket items is just jot a note as to what it was about and why. But I certainly wouldn't be able to sit here and remember all of these and why something happened without having some notation. So take a quick look at those and see if there's anything that you need to visit with me on, or go back and do further research before you, if you're not content with what's there. But this is a standard procedure every year. A little later this year, our figures were a little later, our audit was a little later, so we waited to get the figures in place.
I did go through this, and it looks just fine to me. There are notations to each one of the ones that you put there significant, so.
Excellent.
Would someone like to make a motion we accept these year-end 2012 year-end budget transfers as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Cantorino?
Aye.
Councilman Lyons?
Aye.
Councilman Newbold?
Aye.
Councilman Capella?
Aye.
Supervisor Bloomfield?
Aye, motion carries.
Good job.
I would like to,
Thank you, Will. Go ahead.
talk about Bill as being a very, very good budget officer. He's a college graduate and accountant. He's also got a master's degree in psychology, and we keep talking about using them both. So,
He's a nice guy.
and he's a nice man. He's very cooperative and very fastidious.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So when you walk out the door, you got to shove your head in the side.
That's
to the door.
It's still the same size.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right, Bill. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you for staying.
Drive safe.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, now the next item is the review request by the Village of Goshen to annex village-owned land located in the town adjacent to Route 17M. And Mayor Riley's here to talk to us about this. We had one discussion earlier, and
I can stand, you sure? Yeah, because I have this on.
yeah.
Stuff. Sure.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I just want to take a quick moment to start to introduce Christopher McClellan, who's with me tonight. He's doing an internship with the Village of Goshen this summer. He's a college student, Goshen graduate, and a resident of the town of Goshen down on Brookside Avenue. Brookside, right?
So what do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm still majoring in political science and Spanish. I'm heading for immigration law, but, you know, who knows?
Woohoo!
Opportunities away.
I bet they do. You'll have some jobs going forward. Good.
Thanks so much for having me.
Internship, isn't that another expression for working for free?
It's tough financial times.
Sure.
So, anyway, I know that you guys have discussed, we've discussed this a few times now. I've been in front of this board. This board had a discussion previously. The supervisor, myself, Mr. Kaplicki, and Mr. Donovan met last week, talked about some of the concerns board members had raised. I had David Donovan, the village attorney, put together a letter outlining the ideas that him and Dennis had discussed in terms of the wetlands controls that the town wanted in place to protect those things. Email it over today. I don't know if you've had a chance to review this, Dennis? Okay. So I'm just gonna,
Well, could you comment on that, Dennis?
I assume the mayor will pass it out.
Okay.
This,
Your battery dead?
no, this letter basically embodies the conferences which I have had with Village Attorney Donovan, both at our municipal conference and privately, and it sets forth in paragraph 3 especially the parameters which I believe would be acceptable for the town to ensure that its interests are addressed and any concerns may be addressed in regards to eventual annexation and possible subsequent development.
Now, we're also going to include the sewer plant. Is that correct?
Yes,
that's the very end of the letter.
Yes,
We included that as well.
paragraph, it does
Okay.
incorporate that.
Very good.
Yes. It would make sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Just in terms of, if there's a police call, it's close to the village already, they're going to have easier time accessing and all that.
Yep,
It's just,
absolutely.
Okay. Now, I think, unless you've got more to go through for the board, because I kind of know where they were at when we left
Sure.
last time, there was some questions about how far down did it go, and on Monday night I showed them the map,
Okay.
and it goes all the way down to the edge of the gas station down on 17M, and there are a couple other parcels of property owned by one Chet LeBaron, two of them by Chet LeBaron, and one by
The Anderson family.
Anderson family, so we're aware of that.
Mr. Supervisor, I actually have another map to
Oh,
distribute
good.
to the board.
Good.
This is done with Google Earth, which there's sometimes a lag when they take the picture, so on this picture, you're actually still going to see the dirt pile there, so it's kind of a blast from the past. But it is a picture, so it kind of gives a better idea of where everything is in terms of layout. There's
Okay.
a few copies there, you can pass it down. I have a larger copy, but it also, the copies that you have, the border between the village and the town isn't demonstrated all too well, but in the larger copy that I have here, it is.
Right.
But I know that it had been discussed where actually the border was, how far down the village goes, how far down the town goes. And it was a surprise to me, actually, because I had never taken a look at that one component. But actually, the village line actually abuts that private property in the town of Goshen already at the very bottom there.
That's right.
At the base, where you can kind of see where my fingers, yeah. Which you might have discussed on Monday.
We did.
It was just something that was a surprise to me as well.
Yeah, we were all surprised.
Right.
Okay, and this one shows lagoons okay. Now, Dennis, when we were talking about this process of annexation, is there, I mean, this is shortcutting all the normal, if someone else was doing it.
Correct.
Can you lead us through this process?
Yeah, just very briefly, it'll involve one verbiage which will be incorporated into the resolution along the
Okay.
lines of, what the town is interested in, what the village is committed to do. And we'll have effectively a joint resolution passed by both boards, if you will, verifying the maps, et cetera, once they're, I don't say prepared, that they exist, but we may have to cut and paste a little bit
Sure.
without having to do with the entire perimeter. And again, we may just do the perimeter, it may be seen. So it'd be a relatively streamlined process. I haven't spoken about the specifics with David about it. It can be done jointly, that you need not have public hearings, et cetera. And although I may recommend we have a joint hearing in some
Really?
for
Sure.
that reason,
No public hearings on the annexation?
Yeah, it's an expedited process between the two communities when both communities are in favor of the proposal. There is a provision, but like, again, as I indicated, I think it's probably fair to say, and I can't speak with David, being the village attorney, but I imagine we both would recommend that it wouldn't hurt to have a public hearing or joint meetings so that the public would have the opportunity to have any input or at least be aware, that's all.
And I can't speak for David either, but speaking for myself and the village board, I think that we'd definitely be amenable to that. I mean, just like you gentlemen always say, anytime you can bring the public in on the process, it's always a positive
So
thing.
even though some formalities you can dispense with, you may not want to for obvious clarity reasons and benefit of the community.
Sure.
Yeah, if ever anyone has any questions, we can address them at that time, and then...
And plus, one thing we nice to educate the
We do
public,
it.
just like we found. I mean, I don't think a lot of people didn't realize,
I had no idea it was this large a
exactly,
parcel.
and how, it far extended into the town in that area.
Dennis, would that be a joint meeting for the public hearing?
Yeah, I would think so, yes.
Because just thinking as I'm standing here, I know we talked about this Legion stuff a number of months back. It might be a good reason to bring us all together. If we're going to meet on one thing, why not meet on the other as well the same night?
Yeah.
So, okay, we just probably need to get on with it so that we don't hold you up on what it is you
Sure.
want to do with this.
Would this be just an agenda item and not a public hearing notification?
No, I think you'd go through the public hearing.
To go through the whole
Yeah.
process, all right.
Well, no, not the entire process. Again, it would not be as formal and as...
Well, that's what I mean. If it's an agenda item that we'll be discussing and vote on the annexation as part of the agenda,
They can
then
talk about
anyone that
it
wants to come can
Absolutely.
come,
Yeah.
but the public hearing would be all the specific notifications and...
Yeah, my only hesitation is that obviously when you do it, you want to do it and be finalized and not subject yourselves to, some disgruntled individual or group's complaint if you procedurally you did not follow required law. Like I just had you in that regard. I don't want you to leave here tonight saying, "Oh, we'll just put it on the agenda and do it next month." Yeah, I think sometimes.
All right, well, let's do this.
But we're going to streamline. No question.
Right, that's why I asked the question, because it is streamlined versus normally.
Yes.
Because we've been involved with annexation before, and
Oh, yes.
it goes on for
forever, but what is streamline? I mean, I'm not sure how I can be half pregnant. I'm not sure about that.
There's a provision under the town and village law which allows you to dispense with certain notifications.
Okay.
Certain formal hearings
Okay.
and or proceedings and whatnot.
Is that still called a public hearing, or is it part of the agenda item?
But there's no such thing as an agenda item. Part of the public hearing. No, I'm just telling you.
These
In the law, there's no reference to that.
But Dennis,
There's no
these
agenda.
meetings are public, they're advertised in
Right.
advance, what the agenda is.
Right.
And with privilege of the floor, they can talk about anything on that agenda. Was that where that would be cut?
No, because you're going to have to set a public hearing at a definitive night jointly between the town and the village.
Which I'd be happy to schedule tonight if that
And
works
it's
for everyone too.
So it's a little bit more than, again,
Okay.
putting an item like as we do on.
You know what, you give us the verbiage, so legally...
Yeah, not a problem.
Well, what I don't want to do is have to redo it 6 months down the line.
Absolutely.
I want to do it the right way, you gotta put it however.
Well, Dennis, I could be wrong, but if we're having a joint meeting anyway, wouldn't that require proper notification of
Yeah.
publishing?
It would.
Yeah.
So either way, if we're going to be paying for the ad already, might as well.
Yeah,
put
we're going to have other things on the
Sure.
agenda, yeah.
Well, you
Have it
know,
on the agenda.
when we had the public hearing, it was a joint meeting with Florida, the Village of Florida,
Right.
New York, and us. We held it, it worked just fine. And,
Yeah, but if you have a public hearing, you gotta take comments for 30 days. I mean, there's a whole
No, no.
process, and we want to avoid
You
that.
can cut away a
That's
lot.
right, yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, my suggestion would be,
Interrupt you,
if there's a
that's
consensus, okay, again, my theory or suggestion would be, if there's a consensus tonight to go forward,
Right.
you so notify the mayor.
Right.
The mayor or the village would initiate the first selection date formally by resolution. Well, and
Okay.
then we would pick up off of that once it was confirmed with them.
That couldn't be done tonight by the town, and we just reciprocate?
You could in theory.
I just asked Dennis because this coming Monday is Memorial Day, so we don't meet, so we won't be meeting for another week after Memorial
We're gonna
Day.
miss a couple of weeks too, as the board's aware.
That's why if it's possible, I'd love to get the ball rolling tonight.
Yeah, we don't meet again until,
That's our normal meeting.
right, but it's,
Yeah, we're not missing anything,
no, well, in the sense it's 17 days from today.
but we're not missing anything. That's-
No, we're not gonna miss any meeting, no.
Okay, okay.
All right, well, let's do this then. But before we get into that then, with board members. Do any of the board members have any more questions or concerns that haven't been answered up to now? And are you basically in favor of the, I mean, I want a consensus of where we're at. We'll start with you, Phil.
Well, I need to know if we're talking about the whole parcel or just a portion of the parcel that they had asked for.
I'm talking about the whole parcel.
And so am I. I'm in favor of the whole parcel.
Fantastic.
Okay?
Okay?
Very good.
I just want to make sure we know what we're
Absolutely.
talking about.
Well, I just want to say, Kyle, that, everybody on this board was kind of in favor of this thing and trying to work towards that. I think somewhere or other it got kind of lost in the transition. At least I heard one comment that, the town was trying to give the village a hard time and so on and so forth.
Not for me.
Clearly, that was
Yeah.
not the case in any way, shape, or form. We want to hopefully get a really good rateable there. Yes, I'm in favor of it. The one thing that I did want to mention, and it's in reference to what we were talking about as far as the drainage and the stormwater.
Sure.
When I was in your shoes, in another life, or in a past life, I guess it was, these lagoons were used as part of the sewer plant.
Correct.
They are no longer being used that way.
Correct.
So what we used to have is, especially in the summer months, the second lagoon there with the tributary, and then there's a tributary along here that you can see, and that would go eventually to the Walk Hill River. And there were difficulties and there were problems. It's probably a whole different ballgame because you don't have sewers.
Right, the flow's not going through.
All
Correct.
so it's different.
Sure.
I would imagine the game plan overall would be that you would be using these lagoons in some way, shape, or form to use to access the stormwater once you build up on the top, right? So it seems like these are really good things to have here, right?
As a non-engineer, being non-committal, that makes all the sense to me. But I just don't want to overstep my boundaries and my knowledge base either.
My point, I mean, that's an aside. My point is that there were difficulties in the past, and I think that's what raised my sensitivity to it, that there would be an impediment in some way, shape, or form, that stream might get compromised in some way in the future.
Okay?
Yeah, I just want to thank the mayor for coming and working together.
Absolutely.
It's better than phone calls and letters, being here is much better. It was a pleasure. I think we did have some concerns about it, but I have no problem whatsoever, and I would endorse it.
Thank you.
Lou?
I ditto what George said, because we were always in favor of it. It's just that it's town property with the bird sanctuary, and we had a little concerns about that, because if we don't think about that later on, we won't be here, but something might happen.
Sure.
So that was a big concern, because these habitats and so forth, there's a lot of concern when people build, they have to wait for the back. So we just want to make sure that is protected and there's no problems going down the road, which I know the health department, the DEC, and the planning boards and the engineers will make sure, but we just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, that was our major concern. As far as the project, I wish you well. We need the ratables. We all need it. The village is part of the town. We have to work together.
Absolutely, thank you. And I totally, to the points that Councilman Capel and Councilman Lyons mentioned, I absolutely can appreciate, I think that seeker will definitely put in some protections there, but I think that the idea of the town brought forward of having, the town engineer involved gives an additional layer of safeguards there that I think will really protect the environment there, because certainly, yes, it's in the town, but I think that the bird sanctuary is something very important to the village as well. We want to make sure that's maintained. There's someone on my chair as well. So I think it's a very good partnership, and I do want to thank the full town board and the supervisor for working with the village on this. This is something that I'm very excited about, the village board is excited about, and I think it's going to have ultimately when things turn and we do get it sold, it's going to have a really nice impact on the community from a tax base standpoint and from a job standpoint. So thank you again.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on this are just pair what the board has said. I think going from Georgia, from an engineering perspective, where these lagoons were years and years and used for something else, you never know what's there. So whatever the new company is that's going to have to do the stormwater management under MS4, which we're now under regulations, who knows what's going to come out the other end, but there's land there to be used in that regard. So I'm going to recommend, Dennis, then, that you and Attorney Donovan put together what you think, communicate with both the mayor and myself, and we'll have a joint meeting as soon as possible
Yeah, I don't think
And we're streamlining it such that we don't get bogged down, but yet we do what we're supposed to do.
yeah, I'm trying to research as we speak, because I know there's an expedited proceeding, but it has to do with the fact that it would be a joint resolution, and that's why, I don't
Okay.
think we're in a position tonight to
No.
do it, but we can quickly follow up. It just means that you guys will probably act first.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we can't schedule the meeting tonight?
We can certainly target it.
Sure. But in terms of official resolution?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
understood.
It would probably make sense to make it a Monday night, right? Since
That would be the 10th, is a Monday night.
That'd be ideal for the village, but ultimately, I mean,
I don't know
we'll,
if you have enough time to advertise it all.
I would say to shoot for the 10th, use the alternative for the second meeting of June, and one, I'm sure would coincide.
we wouldn't be meeting until, that first Monday in June. So if we were to pass a resolution,
Three?
yes. I don't know how much notification time would be required, so that might put it past the 10th.
Well, when else would you meet in June?
I don't think there's any Mondays we have off in June, so it'd be, I mean, if it's a workshop or public meeting, either way, we'll make it work.
Right, 3, 10, 17, or 24?
17.
Well, I'm not
Cool.
gonna be here the 10th, and I don't think Trustman.
Okay, let's do it, oh, that's right, you got, yeah. All right, let's do it on the 17th. That would allow the village time, either on the 3rd or the 10th, to put out their...
Right, it would be a joint, to be contemplated as a joint
Right.
resolution,
Right.
with they acting first, yeah.
Okay.
Because then it would be in the Indy, Wednesday, which would be the 5th, I guess.
Right.
And between the 5th and the 17th, that'd be a sufficient time period, Dennis?
I believe it would, yeah.
Okay.
The 5th, the 7th,
Okay,
I
well,
believe
anyway,
so, I just,
yeah.
well, anyway, essentially, we're supporting...
Yeah, we're there.
Which that's taken care of. We'll let the attorneys do their buzzword and magic on this, and then communicate with you, and I will set up the 7th.
fantastic. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it on behalf of the village board, thank you.
On the weekend.
Do you need to...
Where is it for the...
You guys can keep those.
Why pick up this man? So we won't pick with you.
Nothing new, I mean, periodically, you know, I get a call from someone that says, I have someone who wants to look at it, but nothing that's concrete enough to really get ready to jump. I mean, you know, it's just, you know, through talking to site selectors and things, the number one thing they say is, you know, really from a land use perspective and a planning perspective, you really don't want to have to go to 2 boards and all that stuff.
Yes. And that makes sense.
It's the challenge right now, and I know that Doug was at the partnerships conference. These people, when they come to town, they want to move yesterday, and sometimes their time frames aren't really realistic in terms of how we have to do business, because we have to perform the seeker and all, do our diligence. But, you know, anything that we can do to chop down the time frame, you know, is a win.
It's
Good.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much.
What we have to do is get that Hayworth congressman and start taking down in the village of Goshen.
What road is it on?
It's right in front of the museum,
Is it on 207?
Yeah, on 207.
That's probably the state.
Okay, I was just wondering,
I don't know.
Somebody brought it
Yeah.
up to him tonight.
Oh, okay.
That's why he's passing the buck.
Yeah, but you know, still, Councilman, I've been talking to the DOT recently about 207. Next time I meet with them or have an exchange with them, I'll bring that up and see if there's something they can expedite.
The office isn't there anymore.
Sure. Is the Annie Rapid one still down the road too?
I'm stuck in traffic, I looked,
Okay.
I saw it 100 times.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to take a look. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Opportunity, right?
Thank you. Because if I go 30, it goes to the village of Goshen, so when you stop.
Mayor, thank you for coming. Okay, Dennis, this next one,
Before you go on, I'm just contemplating, before we adjourn tonight, we may want to go on record as adopting a resolution of our intention to annex pursuant to joint action with the village. Just in case we need a formal initiation this evening, we don't need...
why don't you,
Yeah, I'm just contemplating that, yeah.
well, we'll get that in a minute or two then, or you
Oh,
want
yeah,
to...
no, I'm not ready right now, but, so I think before we adjourn.
Oh, sure, okay.
On the basketball game, well,
Okay, well, Dennis, this next one involves you as well.
Okay.
This is some discussion regarding the acceptance of the Five Sisters Properties minor subdivision conservation easement proposal. And we talked about the properties where there's appeared that the septic systems on adjacent property were failing and putting raw sewage on the ground. Neil Halloran has communicated all that information to the Department of Health. The Department of Health said they will send inspectors out there to look at it, and I think they dye test it, and then they will come up with what they figure needs to be done, and they'll send a letter to those families, property owners, and give them so many days to fix it. Well, Mr. Feeney called me, he's a land developer involved here, and said, Doug, could you provisionally agree with this so that he can get back into the planning process with the planning board, because it's holding him up, and provisionally do it depending on those letters from the DOH, the Health Department of Health. So I ran this by Dennis, and he said, yeah, we can do that. Okay. So that's where it's at. So Dennis, chime in at this point.
Yeah, the difficulty you got is what the provisions of that provisional, I'm sorry.
Is your battery dead?
No, I may have turned it off.
Okay.
Last time I
It
turned it
didn't
off.
sound like it.
So you don't hear my heavy breathing.
You never turned it on.
Oh, no, it's always on.
Okay.
It depends, obviously, in terms of the provisions you may want to make part of the resolution. Because I received a communication today, which I was just looking for, from Steve Esposito,
I did too.
which was positive, affirmative in its tenor.
Right.
I had a further conversation with him where I can go into the details, but I don't think it'll add anything to our discussion. Simply put, they want to be finalized and done with this, and they don't want to be subject to any provision which would anyway cause them consternation or what I would call pushback as a result of any action taken by the Department of Health. Much like their presentation, they feel that, look, we did what we had to do.
No, but let me share with Albert's the boss. He's the owner. Okay? I said, Albert, we have concerns about this. However, okay, if we can provisionally do this, like when we hire someone, we say hire contingent upon passing a drug test and a background exam. I look at this the same way, so he can get back in the planning process.
And that's my point. Do you make it subject to the determination and actions of the Department of Health?
I think what I would like to see, and we'll see what the board thinks, I'd like to make it contingent upon, okay, right now, the Department of Health working on this, but when we get the letter from the DOH that they've been notified, it satisfies
And that's fine. Yeah,
because you know what?
that would satisfy all parties.
All parties.
Yeah.
Okay, so, what's the board think on this?
Yeah, it's really not our enforcement aspect.
No,
The Department of Health.
Ian,
There is no issue of utilities or anything on that right-of-way or the driveway.
right, I mean, it's like just expanding your drug test theory. If I don't test positive, but the guy who's testing me is the one that tests positive, I shouldn't be held up. I'm confused because I have two separate issues. If he has done everything on his piece of property, but someone else is impacting it, he cannot be held responsible for someone impacting his property. I mean, I don't understand. Maybe I'm not understanding the whole thing, but someone else is dumping sewage or whatever on his property, so we're saying you can't develop your property. It's not his problem. It's an enforcement problem on the people that are destroying his property or anybody else's property.
Well, we had a compromise, I think, Phil. What we said is, George brought up the point that if we accept the conservation easement as proposed, these people don't fix it, all that sewage is going to be on our conservation easement, we're going to have the cost and all the whatevers to enforce that. And so the middle ground is if the DOH has been out there, dive checks it, does this, and sends a letter, then I don't think we can, I mean, that's kind of, then we can leave it, then you're right. Then it's
well, if it takes, let's say it's positive and it goes to court and so on and so on, he could be held up for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, but it's not his problem.
I understand, but I don't think that's the intent.
That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
We're saying that once the letter is issued, he's exonerated from it all.
Right. It's just the overt act that the Department of Health do, in fact, issue a notice of request for information to them.
Right, but does anybody feel that it's his property that's generating the problem?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, so if the DOA or whoever doesn't generate that letter for 3 years, all I'm saying to you is none of that stuff to me means anything.
You're not done yet.
Because it's a third party's doing it. The DOA, whoever is enforcing this thing. It is not the property owner's he should not be held up. And I mean, I have no dog in this fight, I'm just telling you, but I see the unfairness, and I put myself in that position. If my neighbor is doing something, and I want to I'm within the law, and they say, well, you can't because your neighbor's breaking the law, and until we get him to abide by the law, you can't do anything in your property. I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah.
If it's being done and the owner of the property is agreeable, hey, I'm for it. But I just want to, you asked me where I stand.
No, that's
And
not.
that's where I,
No, that, you stand where you,
somebody else.
well, you stand where we did the last time, and
Exactly.
so there's another person on the board who.
Yeah.
Okay, George, why don't you go with your
Not a
take
problem.
on this?
So my contention is, the town of Goshen is going to receive a conservation easement for this property. Now, lot owner number 3 gets his CO, and this hasn't been fixed in the back here. This is our conservation easement now. I would think, maybe I'm wrong, lot owner number 3 is going to come to the town and say, listen, look at this here. This is your conservation easement. There's sewerage that's coming from these abiding or abiding or contiguous properties here. So make me whole now. I mean, you got to get this sewage off my property. It's my property, but it's your conservation easement. And what I was concerned about was, why do we want to get into this? Why not fix the problem? Now, Mr. Esposito, in his letter of May 21st, which I think you were looking for, he just blows the whole thing off, just like he blew the whole thing off when he was here. He says, listen, I told your experts, I told your planning board, I told the attorneys, I told the engineers, I told them, listen, they didn't think that there was a problem. So it's not a problem for my client now. I got to move on. Well, I'm sitting here representing the town of Goshen.
Right.
And I could foresee down the road a legal and a potential problem for the town of Goshen. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I see.
Right, I'm just looking at the declaration now, and there is protection for the town as far as the liability and indemnification, the upkeep and maintenance. The grantor, that is Five Sisters, and any successor and assign, anybody who buys from them, is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance to the extent required by law, the conservation easement. Reserve rights, the grantor reserves the rights to itself and its personal reps, accruing, including the right to engage in or permit invitees, things we've reviewed in the past. Meaning, even though we have the conservation easement, there is provision for the grantor to indemnify and hold us harmless, the town, from any claim such as you described, George. I can't tell you we wouldn't be involved in it, okay, but we do have a status of the grantor promising that, which status could be assigned and would be implicit in any assignment or sale to the new owner of that particular lot.
I think that's a major step in the right direction.
Yes.
That essentially what you're saying is that, I know you can't prevent the fact that we would be sued or
Right.
litigation. Nobody can prevent that. But if we have something in the conservation easement that says, listen, the town is indemnified against that,
Right.
then
And we are.
have as much of a...
Right, we are to the extent necessary. This is why I think, because I followed up on it, this is why I don't think the planning board was as concerned with the potential liability for that issue going on. The grantee in town of Goshen shall have no liability whatsoever to grantor or any other owner for grantor's acts made in good faith connection. The grantor shall indemnify, defend, and hold the grantee, meaning they against the town, harmless for any costs, and you'll be happy to hear this, including but not limited to reasonable attorney's fees, which may be an oxymoron.
No such thing.
So yes, there are protections.
So effectively, what you're saying, as our counsel now, is you feel that we are protected against my concern.
Let me say this, I think you're protected to the extent you can be. I do think that the planning board or any board reviewing applications of this nature has an obligation to know what effects or ramifications exist as a result of activities of property surrounding it. Meaning, if you take it to any logical, to the extreme, let's say someone had a wetland or a impoundment pond or a watershed. If he was pouring it onto this property, even improperly or illegally,
the board would and should be aware, and should basically indicate to the landowner, maybe unfairly, look, we can't allow you to develop that parcel until that particular issue, if it's undermining the property, et cetera, is resolved. So it gives us that protection, but you know what happens. Corporations go, they go out of existence, and then suddenly you have a political situation where you have this poor property owner who's like, why me? I didn't know this was going on. And we come down on him for indemnification. It's a consideration.
Only piggybacking on that, and I'll
Right.
just say, would we be more liable from the builder's point of view if we held this project up for whatever length of time? Would he have recourse if it is not his problem, but we are still holding him?
Yeah, certainly,
I think that's more of the risk that I'm looking at, is he'll sue us if he loses the people that are going to buy these properties or whatever, because we have held this process up through no fault of his.
Yeah, economic.
What I was thinking is that we weren't going to stop him. We had worked out this plan.
Well, the last meeting, we were talking about
Department of Health. Right.
The Department of Health would enter the fray,
Right.
solve the particular problem, and Mr. Feeney could continue on.
Right. The only problem with that, George, is that they would enter the fray, but I don't think they're going to solve the problem. I don't know what they're going to do. They may put a notice, a violation, the landowner may either ignore it or take some action, the Department of Health may take some action or not. You follow what I'm saying?
Or we may take some action like the houses that are abandoned. We walk in, solve the problem, and put it on their tax bill if they won't solve it. Well, those are the things that we should do, but once again, it doesn't involve that particular, his
That's the
develop a
point
piece of property.
Thinking of it in terms of property
Yeah.
maintenance, we could go on the aggrieving or the violating parcel
Violating?
and correct this so that it wouldn't impact this, if you, not only would correct the community issue, but it will also not impact the innocent bystander, property owner, developer, whatever it is.
Okay, so
we're covered.
That's a very good point, Phil.
Yeah, we're covered.
So effectively, what we're saying is if this lot owner number 3 came to us and said, hey, listen, make me whole now, there's all this sewage that's coming on here, then we would in turn go to the landowners there and say, listen, you gotta fix this within 60 days, or we're gonna come in and...
Under your property maintenance law.
And a lien will go against your taxes.
Yeah, I believe you could do that.
Well, I think, though, that when I talk to the building office, the fact is, this is a Department of Health issue. Their protocol they follow is they go out, they examine it, they do a dye test, they figure it out if it's in violation, they issue a letter, you've got so many days to do it. And they enforce that evidently, because this is a health issue.
And you know, they've already done it on the first lot.
Yes.
2, I'm sure you understand the procedure, that would mean a violation goes in that file.
Right.
That would mean that property owner could not,
Sell
very
it or-
difficult,
right.
could not refinance, could not sell. So there's rationale or logic for the property owner to comply for his own benefit, let alone having to go through an enforcement action with
Right.
DOH.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I don't like this with liability being held against. If there's a problem out there, why isn't the developer should solve that problem before he give it to us? We say it's his property, it's broken, I don't want to buy
But
it.
he could not fix it. Think of it this way, it's not his property, it'd be a trespass. All he could do, in theory, would be to build
No,
a
it's
big...
going up to what would be our easement. Has anyone...
Our easement, his property though. Don't forget, it's an easement, and the title would never change.
Well, there must be some kind, maybe I'll lose it. Everybody's talking about legal, who's being held responsible, who's not. Well, there must be some problem. Now, we're saying sewage, we just say sewage like it's just, an overflow and over. No, that man could possibly be very polluted. Has anyone tested that?
I do not know what else.
Oh, no, what else that he's involved with, just the fact that you gotta stop the leaking. Has anyone tested that land to see if it's more polluted than just sewage, right? Sewage off is just someone flush your toilet and, something fall next to the crowd. I'm just trying to protect our end. I mean, if you say it's okay, you're the legal mind.
I said, the key is, the property ownership does not change. It remains in, like, this 5 properties or whatever, or whoever buys the lot. The town has an easement, which is the right to maintain, not maintain, but to keep it.
I want a bad man, I want to say sewage. They could be leaking there for years and years and years, and you know what happens. And then the homeowners build it, and that stuff leaks into their wells. Well, then who's responsible for that? The developer or the town of Goshen?
It's always going to, follow me this.
That's what I want to understand.
Liability-wise, it would always be the developer and/or subsequent landowner, whatever the enforcement action by Department of Health would be. Let's say, like you say, let's say Department of Health came in, they went ahead with the subdivision, they sold the lot, somebody built a house or whatnot. The Department of Health's enforcement would be legally against the then existing property owner who built the house, who could implead or bring into the action 5 properties if the corporation's still alive, et cetera. It would not be reposed on the town. It is possible. That's what it seems to indicate.
And they're failing.
Right.
Now, whether they fail for a year or 5 years, I don't know, but normally when they fail, and it's biological kind of stuff,
Yes, you
it's not like you're putting lead in the ground or some other kind of thing, it is raw sewage, which should be pretty identifiable and fixable.
Yeah, in addition, and not to minimize it, but when I follow up on it, even
The agencies came and they cared. They monitored that ground, they dug out that ground, they tested. They were knocking on my door once a month. Can we test your guy? So I'm just, not just one. My next door neighbor, maybe things have changed, but that's what I was worried about.
I suspect the
It
county,
was a big to-do for my neighbor, it cost him a lot of money.
I would suspect the county would do the same.
Okay,
In
that's all
terms
right.
of the violation or notice, to whatever degree their engineers and their personnel.
Okay, just so that just roll up, because that was a concern. You said it's not a worry, I don't know.
Generally speaking, we don't have the benefit of Dennis and Sean here, but since those folks were the people who reviewed this,
Do you remember
with
this?
the planning board, and I don't want to put you on the spot, maybe I am, but would you have any kind of a rationale of why this occurred?
One of the things here, it seems to me the conservation easements, the way they normally handle it, I think that this is one, this is an overlay, if you will, on the property. It simply protects the property for the future for development.
Right.
The ownership still stays with the property owner.
That's right.
And I would think that if he has someone imparting materials on his property, be it sewage or be it something else, he has an action against someone.
Right.
Just because you have an easement that protects the area from development and from, as a conservation area, I don't know why that brings you into the fray in terms of someone discharging onto that. Sean, is it any different than that?
It would not. So the board is aware. See, your easements are very different from ownership. Easements just give you a right, not a responsibility necessarily.
Okay.
And it protects your interest as that in the community, to open space. But again, we don't get into the enforcement of it unless, for some reason, you want to assert that.
Well, it appears tonight we have more information than we had in our last meeting when we discussed it. Lou?
I feel comfortable.
Okay.
I feel comfortable, I'm glad everybody's feel brought up this one, I'm glad to enlighten everybody, I'm comfortable with our professionals.
Yeah.
All right, so
Sean, I think, Mr. Hoffman has a comment.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just commenting on what Dennis said. Their surveyor did in fact bring it up, put it on the plan because it was something they noticed. They wanted the planning board to be aware of it before they went out and did their site walk.
there was one other question that came up last time we discussed this, and that's the easement across the easement for the driveway. And now, the next question came up, well, how are they going to get electricity and how are they going to get natural gas or anything else that they might have out there? And when I talked to the building office, he said the utilities go the most direct route. And so it shouldn't really be a problem, but the fact is, could go across somebody else's land to get there.
I suspect not.
Well, I suspect not too, but Neil said, normally it would be a contest between the builder and whoever's doing this, because like electricity, where are they going to put the poles? Is it underground or whatever? Is it going to go underneath the driveway? Where is it going to go?
It has to be underground.
Pardon?
It has to be underground, and generally I've seen them.
Would it go under the driveway, this easement? Because this is an island in itself. That's
Yeah, I was, again, all I can tell you is what I was told. A direct question to Esposito. He indicated there will be no utilities whatsoever in the driveway area.
So how are they going to get them?
Would indicate to be a trench somewhere else, probably on that man's property.
Can't. it's basically surrounded by either someone else's property or the easement. It's a horseshoe around it.
The planning board doesn't typically get the telephone, electric, gas.
Okay, I mean, I'm just bringing that up. The question was raised at our last
We
meeting.
have water and sewer.
And I tried to get the answer, and not that that's going to be a big issue or a showstopper. And we're not, I mean, it's going to be built by this builder who's asking for us to accept the conservation easement. So I take it for granted that that's going to be okay.
Mr. Supervisor, is your concern the underground utilities within the conservation easement?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I believe your code may allow underground utilities through
It
open
does.
space areas.
It does.
The question was asked, would it be under the easement for the driveway, and the answer is...
The answer I was told was no.
No, okay.
Which means it's gonna be underground elsewhere on that property.
Fine.
It's gonna be underground.
think I'm the one that asked that.
All right, well, this is a good discussion. I'm glad we had our professional engineers
Yeah, well,
here
it's
to help
important,
us.
no disrespect to non-professionals, but the easements, it's confusing as heck. Because again, normal people do not confront with these things every day.
So,
Fee title, fee simple, et cetera, will legal terms as to what you own.
So Dennis, why don't you make, for us to put out a motion, so to speak, to accept this easement as it was presented?
Yeah, not a problem. A motion would be in order to authorize the supervisor to sign the declaration of conservation easement, Five Sisters Properties LLC to the town of Goshen, with respect to the subdivision known as Five Sisters Properties LLC. Tax map parcels, section 2, block 125, section 2, block 1, lot 68.
Would someone like to make a motion in that regard?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Cantorino?
Aye.
Councilman Lyons?
Aye.
Councilman Newbold?
Aye.
Councilman Capella?
Aye.
Supervisor Blufield?
Aye, motion carried. I thought it was a good, healthy discussion, guys. Very good, okay.
Thank you for the input, cleared up a lot for me.
I know more about sewage than I want to know. Okay, under new business.
Good night, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, bye-bye.
We'll see you later on Monday.
And if you need something signed off that you were here, whatever, just let me know and I'll sign it and send a letter. Thank you. Under new business, would someone like to make a motion, we accept the letter of resignation by Ralph Huddleston, Goshen Planning Board Chairman, effective May 31st, 2013.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Any discussion?
Right, Ralph Leather.
Oh, yeah.
He's been our planning board chairman for many, many years and has done an absolutely outstanding job.
I agree with that.
I did all
Yeah.
the same comments.
Yeah.
Nice job.
14 years.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
Deciding what he did.
Yeah.
You know, I go way back, I was on the before, but yeah, he take that planning board, he grabbed it.
Yes.
Forget when he became chair, there was a lot of vacancies, there was a lot of
Yes.
infighting, and he did a tremendous job for not only the planning board, but the people
Yeah.
of town.
Yeah.
Excellent job. We'll miss Ralph.
Well, I think one of the things that Ralph brought to the job was he was technically trained. And that helped and he was in charge.
Yeah.
He's a big, imposing person, he was in charge, and I enjoy going to his meetings, so.
He got the community all out, Little League, baseball, soccer, I mean, he was everywhere.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I will get a letter out to him.
If I may, I've got to go back to one housekeeping detail on the Five Sisters.
Okay.
If you remember, also in connection with the conservation easement, we were offered easements and road dedication of certain strips of land.
Yes.
I would recommend a motion be made and affirmatively acted on.
Why don't you make a motion like you did the other day?
Authorization for the supervisor of the town of Goshen to sign any and all documents necessary to complete the irrevocable offer of dedication from Five Sisters Properties LLC to the town of Goshen with respect to those fee and easement parcels to be given to the town of Goshen for road purposes.
Would someone like to make a motion in that regard? A second?
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Cantorino?
Aye.
Councilman Lyons?
Aye.
Councilman Newball?
Aye.
Councilman Capella?
Aye.
Supervisor Littlefield?
Aye, motion carries.
And
Thank you
just
very
be
much.
aware, Doug, before you conclude tonight, you need to sign all
Sign those,
these.
that's-
I'll have it.
Okay. The next one, would somebody like to make a motion that we appoint Lee Burgess, Goshen Planning Board Chairman, effective May 31st, 2013?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'd like, for discussion, I'd like to say Lee he's an engineer as well. He's got lots of experience, he's been on the board several years, and he'll be a good chairman.
I concur.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next one is, would somebody like to make a motion, we appoint Phil Dropkin to the planning board effective June 1st, 2013?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now Dennis, this next one is in your bailiwick. Review and approve the ADC Orange stipulation extension.
Can you give your mic, you want to take this one?
I'm good.
Go ahead. He's not gonna go.
No, this is the stipulation. No, the other Dennis.
As the board will remember, ADC Orange LLC is the project colloquially known as Maplewood. We have had three prior stipulations in regards to the settlement of the litigation in that matter. And most recently, that expires June 11 of this year. And most recently received a proposed fourth stipulation, which stipulation, if you remember, contained a modification whereby the developer, petitioner, plaintiff wanted to amend the stipulation so as to provide for the alternative of non-age restricted housing. There was some objection or concern from the board's point of view. That was communicated to attorney and principal, I guess it's Richard Garrett. And they have agreed to remove in its entirety that alternative modification. And as such, the stipulation simply recites very simply that the previous stipulations, three of which were entered into, would be extended for an additional one-year period commencing on June 11, 2013. And the extension basically provides the right to terminate the conditional settlement and discontinuance of the election of ADC Orange Inc. in the event normal processing is not completed in the affirmative on the project. Meaning if at some point in time, while these stipulations are in effect, if for whatever reason the Town of Goshen Planning Board rejects or does not approve whatever proper applications before the planning board, they would have the right to reactivate litigation.
Sure.
That's the effect of all these stipulations.
Sure.
But that's not a change, that's the way.
No, it's just absolutely not a change at all. That's what all three priors
I
have.
think
All right, that's what we've done three
And that
times.
was, right, that was a protective measure, because again, they got bogged down in environmental
Sure.
studies,
Well,
sometimes it takes longer than those times.
Yeah, but as long as the initial application remains the same.
Yes, absolutely.
That's very important.
But no,
Because if
that's not
we
correct.
can't reject it,
Right.
if he comes with a totally different application.
No, remember, we resolved number of units,
Yes, we did.
that's the application.
I understand that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, I want to make sure we understand, because almost the way it sounds in that stipulation, which goes on, that we cannot reject it, otherwise he'll bring up the resolution for whatever application. Does it refer to the application that has been submitted in that in that extension? I don't think it does.
Well, again,
We may have missed something in the last three
yeah,
extensions.
no. What it recites is that the litigation was resolved on the basis that the application would consist of the following. That's that three allocation breakdown: townhouses,
Right.
single families, and what I call single homes along
Okay.
Coleman Road.
All right.
That is the application,
Right,
which if, other than normal environmental concern,
right.
was in any way substantially diminished.
I have no problem.
Right.
I just need to understand
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
we're not talking about if they bring another application and we don't agree with that application, that they can say, well, you know what, this one makes more sense, and you're not agreeing with it for whatever reason, and we want to...
No.
Okay.
They cannot do that.
Would someone like to make a motion regarding that stipulation extension?
And the motion is to authorize, approve and authorize the supervisor to
Supervisor sign.
1 year.
That's correct.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And I thought it was a good discussion leading up to the fact that we said no to that change they wanted.
Yeah, I found it interesting. In fact, just editorialized to give you a little bit more information, there's been a number of emails back and forth, including, I think, Mr. Lindsay, where Mr. Guerin, the principal, who's been in front of town for a decade at least, wanted to move this along. And without any explanation, they absolutely acceded, or any inquiry, they acceded to our request that modification of non-age restricted housing be removed, because he wants to, quote unquote, move it along. I think he's very interested in moving the procedure.
Good, okay. This next one's got a misprint in it. Item 5 is information the town of Goshen has officially been designated MS-4 in regard to stormwater water management. And you'll see a letter in here from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, dated received May 20th, 2013. You can go down to the second paragraph. It says, this letter is to inform you that all or part of your jurisdiction has been identified as being located within an urbanized area according to the 2000 census. Therefore, your MS4 will come under the purview of the Clean Water Act stormwater permitting requirements in accordance with such and such. So, basically what it is, the Village of Goshen and the Town of Goshen, we're now under the auspices and the regulation of an MS4 regulation. So, just as information, Neil is working with Dennis Lindsay and company to understand what it is we've got to do and to do it in the time fashion that we're supposed to do it. But this is so important because of what the annexation we were just talking about earlier tonight. It's got to be done right and to a different, perhaps a higher bar.
What is this for,
You might,
George. Yeah, Attorney Mike does our town.
I'm sure he knows more than we do.
A while back, we had this great controversy over the issue of the DEC was coming out and they were going to radically change the amount of wetlands through Orange County and I guess through the whole state. That seemed to have died, it seems to have gone somewhere else. I haven't heard anything more about it. Is this sort of like...
This is different.
This is totally different.
Completely different.
This
This
is
is
totally
stormwater, this is a separate small stormwater sewer systems, okay, MS4s. And you do have obligations on this. When this first came out in about 2002 or 3, it was in a 5-year phase-in program. I'm not sure exactly how long they would give you to phase it in, but there are 6 measurable goals. You have to set up a program so that you can monitor how you meet those goals. One of them is legislation. You're going to have to adopt some laws, local laws, for illicit discharge and detection and for soil erosion sediment control. You have to do certain mapping in your system. You have to do certain educational programs. You have to do certain training. There are a number of things you have to do, and you have to file an annual report. You're supposed to have a public meeting on it. You don't have to have the public meeting if you post your annual report prior to the meeting and you revise it. It's on your website. There are a number of things you can do, and the details still keep coming out. But by coming in a little bit later, and we've done a number of these up to this point, and the DEC now has also had some experience in this and whatnot. So, but the wetlands issue is the same group, DEC, but it's a different program.
And it's based on population, George. The census is what put us over the top in this. This has nothing to do with wetland delineation. But
if I could add one thing.
Yeah.
We've had some other communities where only a small segment of the community is actually in the MS4 area. And it is by population. And you have some fairly large community here in the town, and your denser populations are surrounding the village and certain outskirts. So I'm not sure exactly which areas were designated. Their mapping was terrible to read at the beginning, very difficult. We'll have to take a look at it and see what it is. If you get under a certain percentage, then there's somewhat of a relaxation of a number of things you might have to do, might keep your costs down, so we take a look at that. But the local laws and things like that are actually good local laws. They're not bad, and other communities I have to represent that only had a small portion of the community in it. The local laws they've adopted regional throughout the entire community because the goals of those local laws are generally ones I think you want to have. And pretty much your laws, a lot of them reflect that now anyway.
Dennis, this is going to involve a lot regarding the highway department.
Yes.
Yeah, so, this in the building office, but this is going to not just strictly be building office.
No, they're gonna have to go in for the training, there's
Right.
certain things that they'll need to do and be aware of, housekeeping.
So Louis, brace yourself. All right, thank you for that discussion.
This is another unfunded mandate.
Yes, you're gonna have to have some kind of a line item for certain expenses you're gonna.
Right. Okay, the next one is, the discuss and approve waiving $105 building permit fee for the Daughter of the American Revolution School Restoration Project out on 17A.
Yep.
Our building inspector went by there today and found that they were putting a concrete floor in, and they're going to put wood on top of that. This is a continuation, right? Maybe the final phase of what they started a year or two ago. And so everything looked proper. They put the vapor barrier in, they did this, they did that, and tomorrow they want to pour the concrete, which I think Mr. Tess is giving free of charge to them. But Neil said, you know what, folks, I don't want to be a stickler, but you needed a building permit for this. The building permit is minimal, the lowest that we have, which is $105 for this. There'll be no more inspections on his part because he dropped by today, okay? And it's ready for pouring in the morning. So the lady in charge of the Daughters of the American Revolution called me and said, would you be willing to request of them that they waive the $105 building permit fee? And I said I would do that. We've done it in the past on other properties. So that's the request that's presented here tonight.
Okay.
Anybody, would someone like to make a motion in that regard then?
So moved. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yeah.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay manual?
That was Orange County Water Authority, talked about adding on to your, under new business.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much for reminding me.
I've been waiting. I wrote it down.
Oh, he's been waiting.
No, I wrote it down.
We have a request from the Orange County Water Authority. They're making an application, listen to this, to the NEIWPCC and the NYSDEC Hudson River Estuary Watershed Resilience and Management Grant Program.
I knew that.
And then basically what this is there it says the town of Goshen has experienced many catastrophic floods in its history and is actively seeking solutions to reduce flood-related damages. So this water is this money, a grant, will be used to study this and whatnot. And so they're asking if we would write a letter to the appropriate people in New Paltz, New York, with New York State DEC, signed by me supporting this plan as part of the Orange County Water Authority. And I said, okay, but the letter I found out this afternoon needs to go out tomorrow. So, would someone like to make a motion to authorize me to sign this letter in support of this grant program?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Kenny, thank you for reminding me of that.
Somebody,
Oh, yeah, you were
I still recouping of which tennis we talked.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay manual accounts payable check runs of May 6th and May 17th, 2013, amounting to $235,154.51, and accounts payable check run on 5/23/2013, amounting to $164,728.31.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, lastly, privilege of the floor. Does anybody have anything they would like to? Yes, Joe?
I'll be brief in the questions. I won't guarantee you'll be brief in your answers ever, but
comment.
I'll be brief in the questions. You mentioned the summer camps earlier, or the summer programs. In the past, there's been some subsidy of, I don't want to call it tuition, but fees. Are you planning on doing any? Are you planning on doing any public relations to perhaps have private contributions towards scholarships for low-income kids this year? I mean, it's far enough in advance that it makes sense to do it now if you're going to do it. Let me ask all three questions and then we can deal with it. You mentioned the chief earlier. With the previous chief, is his employment now terminated free of any litigious issues, or are there any litigations that are still attached to that situation?
Yeah, there is litigation pending.
Okay, there you go.
Thirdly, on litigation, perhaps you could elaborate on that. And the last question is, if you could elaborate on Faith et al., which I see is an ongoing litigation, if you could just characterize what it is without getting into, discussing anything which would be inappropriate.
Should George answer the first question first?
Sounds reasonable. Go ahead, George.
Okay, what the JRC does is they articulate with the social workers at Goshen Central Schools, and if there is a hardship case, they try and make arrangements on a as-needed basis. But your point is well taken, Joel, in that we started last year, we were encouraged by community development to do a more formal type of thing. There's a new person there, Richard Mayfield is the new director of community development, and that has to be revisited. I have not, looked at that. I did mention it to him once. I saw him at an Association of Towns meeting. I did mention that to him about that, and he wasn't really he's new. He wasn't really positive about it, so I didn't get I got a very positive thing from the assistant director that was there, Joanne Pizzino, who was there for years and years and years when they didn't have a director. So I got kind of a mixed message. But I'm going to revisit that again because I would like to certainly do something for that. There certainly is a need in our community.
I was thinking more in terms of public relations encouraging private contributions to private help for people.
That was the last thing I was going to say is possibly venturing out and contacting somebody like the Rotary. They might want to sponsor something like that, but that's
or even just letting it be known that there is a need in the community and people can privately contribute to a fund. I don't know if you need any sort of a fund set up formally to do that, or can it just be done under the auspices of the town's financial setup?
Well, this is a JRC issue.
Right.
It's a town issue. It's a town and village.
Yeah, town and village. So would it need a separate fund? Can it just be done through JRC as private contributions, or?
I would indicate...
Or is it too complicated to mess with?
No, separate fund.
I guess they could make a donation to a 501(c)(3).
Right. They could do that.
But you'd need to set one up.
There is one.
There is one set up.
There is one that's set up. JRC set one up.
For general purposes, George?
I think it was...
Tom Sion was involved this about a year
ago. They did
that.
Geez, I haven't read the Bible.
Very pertinent question.
Yeah.
And I said that there's still time, but actually it is a little late in the season to be making this a public relations issue. But I think there's a crying need, which is sort of in the shadows in this community. One of the indicia of that is the unpaid water bills in the village, which are being carried over onto the taxes are up 114% year over year in the village.
Just, you know, it's interesting, we do the same, we re-levy tax,
Right.
our water sewer bills. And it's interesting because a lot of it's related to the cost. The increase in the re-levy is because people are being charged a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Versus if it had been flat, it might remain. There's always going to be a re-levy, so, but it goes back to the economics.
I'm saying the
of it
raw
anyway.
amount has gone up 114%.
Sure.
There's a big increase year over year. I think there's a need in the community. These are very tough times.
Sure.
We agree.
You know, in that regard, when we've hired these two seasonal employees, you know, $14.25 an hour for 6 months, we had over 70 applications the first 2 days.
Wow.
And we had to cut it off.
Wow.
People called for another week or two. Hundreds of people want employment. You think, well, employment's great, the stock market's great, and everything else. Well, it's difficult. And we had people with two college degrees wanting to work for $14.25 an hour who had lost their employment and needed some money. So, yes, I agree with you. The things, you really have to look down into the weeds to find out how well people are doing financially. Now, what was your third question?
The two litigations, if you could just elaborate.
Oh, yeah. Take that up.
Yeah, status-wise, there is a pending matter of litigation that was filed by Dennis Marsh against the town, seeking compensation for alleged accrued vacation and sick days, ongoing litigation. And the other piece of litigation was Faith et al. Versus the town of Goshen, where the petitioners are seeking unknown relief, but want the town of Goshen to become responsible for correcting the flooding along the Walk Hill River within the town of Goshen.
Is that an Article 78 or
No.
a liability?
A liability action.
And they're also suing the New York State DEC, and they're suing Orange County. And the homes that are suing us are right on the edge of the river. They're in the floodplain.
Is the town a co-equal defendant in that litigation, or
From a litigant point of
subordinate?
view, yeah. But obviously I don't believe that case has any merit. Most of the attorneys involved with it has any merit. And it's somewhat difficult to impose that type of obligation on the town of Goshen when it impacts many, many other regional areas far beyond the confines of the boundaries of the
Well, that's why I asked what I did.
The other thing is covered by our insurance company. We have insurance to cover us on this lawsuit. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Would someone like to make a motion we adjourn to go into executive session with the intent to return to discuss ADC Orange Water Sewer negotiations, PD personnel case update, El Carpo Limited legal matter, and this should be actually ERB and ZBA personnel needs. Would someone like to make a motion in that regard?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. So we're going to be some time in this, probably. Priscilla, you don't need to hang out with her, you know. We will come back in and pass, hopefully, a motion, but it could be 2.5 hours later from now. So we're going to send out Sam. The pot roast is going to burn. So we're going to put ADC Orange up first on this, so you can go home and
Get the right dentist.
have your aspirin before you go to bed.
By the way, I appreciate you coming.